But first, if the Prime Minister was hoping for a refresh in the new year, he was sorely mistaken. Despite spending the summer out in the hustings, Labor's fortunes have continued to slide. The first news poll of 2025 showing that for the first time, voters expect the coalition to win the next federal election. And the PM's personal approvals hit a new low. Joining me now to pick this all apart and also to the start of this unofficial campaign, well and truly in it, expert pollster, the head of Redbridge, Cos Samaras. Cos, great to have you back. This is like your grand final year. You're on the field almost every week now before we get to the campaign proper. I mean, clearly we're in a campaign now, right? Let's just cut the BS. We're in a campaign now. If you have a look at that vote in news poll, Coalition's primary steady, Labor still declining, still falling fast. Dutton's now only 3 points off the Prime Minister as preferred PM. What's your assessment of what you've read today?
The real danger for the Labor Party is that Albanese is actually a lot more unpopular than Dutton. And the reason I point that out is because the Labor campaign's entire, I would say, negative strategy is to basically attack Dutton. They have this assumption that Dutton is incredibly unpopular within the electorate. Look, that may be true, but their bloke is more unpopular. It's not just Newspoll that's come up with these numbers. It's a number of other pollsters, including ourselves, that are clearly now showing that Albanese's numbers are way low in terms of likability. Not preferred Prime Minister, but in terms of what do Australians think of the two leaders. And so that's the real big problem I think the Labor Party is now facing, that if they've got a Prime Minister and a leader, a candidate for their campaign that is more unpopular than the opposition leader.
Mm. What I understand is Dutton's been around for 20 years. So people's views about him are pretty mature. I think they're already baked into some of those numbers. I think probably ditto for the Prime Minister, but they're seeing him through the lens now of a leader in difficult times who perhaps they see as weak, and certainly on a home front level in terms of cost of living is not delivering all the things he said he would deliver for them. So we saw that with Donald Trump. It didn't make a scrap of difference to go after him personally. In fact, it hastened his landslide win. Why on earth would they have the same strategy here that didn't work over there?
If you look at the global landscape, most Australians are really nervous about that. If you look at the financial landscape in this country, as in the economy, the national economy, they're really nervous about that. They've not had any real clear air since the pandemic. They can't even remember what the world was like before the pandemic. So all they've had is instability. And along comes, obviously, the inflationary crisis. And also, whilst at the same time, we're seeing a number of conflicts trigger across the world, Ukraine, obviously the Middle East, lots of turmoil everywhere. And Australians are looking for someone who's going to actually help them ride through this. The problem, again, we'll go back to what the Labor Party has, is that, Albanese doesn't have those attributes.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about the issues, that are moving voters. Clearly, cost of living. I want to get your sense whether you think that's still that top issue. The other one that often gets talked about is cultural issues, like Dutton's position on having only one flag. I would normally say the cultural stuff isn't high up the batting order. But I think when the Prime Minister turned the voice into a cultural referendum as much as anything else, I think he's invited, at least in this term of Parliament, a lot more of that cultural debate than we normally see in Australia. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, it's again really about a group of Australians who feel that, particularly the left side of politics, spends far too much time on those cultural issues. So what Dutton's trying to do now is really try to extract that out as a theme that belongs to the Labor Party. And obviously you could see the Labor Party's trying very hard, including Albanese, to not take the bait, because they know that is a really dangerous bit of territory for them to walk into. So, I mean, that's Dutton's strategy. It is the right strategy from his perspective. And at the moment, the Labor Party is refusing to take the bait. But again, we are talking about the 2023 and a full year of Labor branding itself with a cultural issue, which, you know, it's going to be very hard for them to actually dislodge.
Yesterday, the PM sat down with my colleague Andrew Clennell, and he had a real pitch about stability. He said, you know, this is the benefit of making me a full-term PM. I come back for another term. Have a listen.
It is true that the last time a Prime Minister won 2 elections in a row, served a term and was elected, was John Howard in 2004. So it's been more than 2 decades. I don't think that that has served Australia well. And my government has been stable, has been orderly, has been united.
If he wins, because the best he can hope for is minority government. So we're back to a hung parliament.
Yeah.
Now, I lived the horror of the last hung parliament. It's anything but stable. And if he sends Labor into a hung parliament, I mean, surely his colleagues will be gunning gunning for his job, won't they?
Yeah, look, let's focus on the hung parliament scenario. There are a group of Australians who actually quite like the idea. And there's obviously another group of Australians who think it's a terrible idea and it's going to create all sorts of instability and chaos. So it depends on who that message is actually targeted to. Because if you're talking about the voters in the outer suburbs of Melbourne and Sydney in particular, they kind of like the idea of instability because they think the system is stacked against them. They want to see the major parties put under a lot of pressure. And so that narrative won't bite all that hard. Like these voters, they've seen what, you know, Albanese's version of stability looks like. Their circumstances, their financial circumstances have gone backwards. Flip side, they also have the same view with Dutton as well. So it's a matter of, you know, who's the audience here, and if the audience is the people that the voters that Labor's got problems with, then that's not the right message.
Well, that's very interesting. That is very interesting. I suspect that plays out in Teal seats as well, very heavily.
That's right.
Cos, thank you. Great to have you back on deck.